أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر.
હવે આજનો જે આપણો જમે થવાનો મકસદ છે કે એક ઇન્ટરેક્ટિવ સેશન રાખવામાં આવે કે જ્યાં આપણે નેટવર્કિંગના શું બેનિફિટ્સ છે એ આપણે જાણી શકીએ. So today we are going to focus on various tools and tips that will benefit and help master your business networking skills and a positive relationship building of your contact sphere. Sharing his immense knowledge and experience regarding business networking, today we would like to introduce tonight's speaker, Mr. Bijay Shah, who is the National Director for BNI, which is Business Networking International in UAE and Qatar, and co-National Director for BNI, Kenya and Uganda. Well, besides winning numerous BNI CEO awards for outstanding performance and business excellence in 2006, 2008 and 2013, Mr. Bijay holds a Bachelor of Science in Banking and Finance from the University of Wales, College of Cardiff, and a Master's of Science in Shipping and Trade and Finance from City University of London. He has recently co-authored the book, The World's Best Known Marketing Secrets, which is an international bestseller. So without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Bijay Shah on stage, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I wish I could speak Gujarati just like he did. I've never presented in Gujarati. Mara janam thyo che in Nairobi. I've been born and brought up over there for the first 16 years of my life. I was there, and then I moved on to university in the UK. So I apologize if I'm presenting fully in English. I do speak Gujarati at home, but not to this level, and I've never presented in Gujarati. So after being over here, I think I'm inspired to one day actually do a full presentation amongst people who can actually understand the language. So thank you very much for that opportunity. And I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present this presentation to you. So I'm very, very grateful. Let me start by asking you, I need to see my slides firstly. So this will have to help me over here. These are different slides, huh? Perfect, thank you. So think of the last time you made a major decision in your life. It might have been a business decision. It might have been a big purchase that you made. Whatever decision it was, think of that and ask yourself, when you made that decision, did you just do it after thinking, or did you speak to people? Did you seek advice? And when you sought advice, who did you go up to? Who did you call? Who did you speak to? How many of you can think of a time when you made a major decision recently in the last, say, 6 to 12 months? Or maybe even very recent in the last few weeks or last couple of months. And before you made that decision, you actually thought of speaking to somebody first. How many of you actually can think of a situation like that? I see a few hands. I'm going to ask you, it's interactive. So you may not want to share the actual decision maybe. Whatever you're comfortable with, if you want to quickly just explain what kind of decision it might have been and who did you speak to? That's what I want to know. What relationship did you have that you spoke to?
Just in two words, it was for the real estate. And somebody I know, I've been seeing him from many years ago. So we get a first-hand experience from him.
And he has real estate experience?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Who else? Yes, sir.
Certain business decisions, and I approached my elders who are quite experienced in business and the knowledge also, and business community people who would be of good advice to.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we always seek advice from people who have experience, people who we have credibility with, we trust them. And I'm sure all of us, we go through a journey. Our juniors, our children, we also want them to go to the same path. All of us over here are in business in some way or the other. Either we own businesses or we may be actually employed in a business, but we're involved in making business decisions. And the question of networking happens. What is networking? Why do we network? What you just gave an example of is what you do in networking. You have a network. You have a network of people you can call up, and they'll be happily offering you advice. And they're not looking for anything. They're not asking that if I give you this, you give me this. They want to help, right? So I think in our community, the way we've been brought up, and I know your community, both here and other parts of the world, you are very strongly networked from the very young. Will that be correct? We're generally quite networked. I mean, if I were to ask you, how many people do we know amongst our community, in our community members? You know, when you have facilities like this, when you have so many different events happening, there's that whole thing where we support each other. So naturally, we are quite networked compared to Western societies. So the question arises, do we really need to learn this? I used to think the same as well. But we have a misconception that we know everybody or everybody knows us. And you come to realize actually that there's so much out there. There's so many different communities, there's so many different people, and having access to different people in different communities, different businesses, can really help us further. So that really would be what networking, why networking is important. What is networking? Would anybody like to just give me some sort of definition or their understanding of what they understand by networking? Anything. There is no dictionary definition, so don't worry. What is your understanding of networking?
To connect with each other.
To connect with each other, yes. What else?
To increase your contacts.
To increase your contacts, okay.
It's to give.
To give, to help others, wonderful. Any others? One more?
To seek advice.
To seek advice, okay. It's to exchange information. So the question is, why do we network? It could be for any one of these reasons. It could be for business. It could be to support each other. It could be to seek information, like the examples we saw. So people network for different reasons. It's not always business. It can be also other things in business. But the important thing about networking, somebody mentioned, is about building relationships. Building relationships. So what I want to present to you today is how do we do this effectively and how can it benefit all of us? A lot of people have this thinking that networking means meeting new people. Yes, making new contacts, growing your network. But before that, ask ourselves, who do we already have in our network? And what are we doing with that network? Especially if you are running a business and you have a team of people and you tell them, I want you to go out and network because you want them to generate more leads and then sales. They would think, okay, I need to go out there, meet lots of people, give out my business cards, and hopefully I'll be able to get more customers. Anybody been through that or kind of know of that sort of experience? Yeah. That's actually a misconception. It doesn't work. So, before you even start adding new people to your contacts, you've got to ask yourself, who is already in my network and what am I doing with that network? So I'm going to run through a few slides, and what I want you to do is think anytime, and this might have happened in the last few days, last few weeks, last few months. Just raise your hand as I go through this slide. Make this interactive, let's make it a bit fun as well. If any of these statements come up on the slide, just raise your hand so we know. Everybody good with that? Okay. So what is networking? That's the definition, that's my definition. which pretty much covers everything that you also shared. It's about developing contacts and relationships to enhance our networking, our knowledge, and to benefit and serve the community. So what are the kind of things do we do when we network? How many of you can think in the recent past where you actually called somebody to say thank you? Anybody done that recently? You called somebody to say thank you. Yeah. That itself is networking. You're building relationships, so you're strengthening the relationship. The fact that you actually acknowledge somebody and thank them. Okay? If somebody gave you a referral or an introduction, but it did not work out, rather than just complain about it or not say anything, actually calling the person, thanking them, and explaining to them or giving them an update of what happened. Anybody done that? And that's a good thing as well, right? Because you're actually giving them feedback. That itself is also relationship building and networking. Has anybody over here been called by somebody else for source of information? Lots of hands. So when somebody is calling you, you should take it as a privilege that that person thinks highly enough of you to call you, to ask you for information or for advice. It's actually a service. We should be very, very privileged. So well done on that. What about sharing information? What about you calling somebody else for information or support or advice? We had some people do that. Fantastic. The difference between knowing what networking is and simply just collecting lots of business cards and names. I think again, if we're smart enough to know there's a difference between that. A lot of people think just giving out business cards is networking. It's not. It's actually building relationships. And then when you say that you will do something, actually delivering on that. Commitment. How many of you in a position where you met somebody, they promised you something, but then afterwards, nothing ever happened? They were just being polite, they were being nice, but nothing ever came out of it. We never want to be in that position. So if you've been asked, or if you say something, you commit to somebody, then you should deliver, right? And what happens if you cannot deliver? What is a good practice? Call up and say, look, I said this, but actually I cannot do this. It's okay. Nothing to be ashamed of. I know sometimes culturally it may be a bit challenging, but it's all about building credibility and keeping our integrity. So that's very important. And just generally keeping in touch. Last year, or actually this whole pandemic that we're going through, how many of you have actually gotten badly impacted? Especially in the early days, we didn't know what was happening. There was a big impact on your business, maybe, or maybe even in a family situation. How many of you had some sort of impact? All of us have, I think. And what did we do about it? How many of you actually took action to call people up just to ask them if everything is okay? Yes, that itself, showing support. We may not be in a position to actually help sometimes, but just calling to say it's everything okay. Telling the other person I'm here for you. Yeah? All this is networking. And sometimes when somebody asks for something, we say yes, which is absolutely fine. But also, knowing when to say no. Again, I know culturally sometimes this can be a bit of a challenge. We are brought up to say yes all the time, never say no. But there are ways of actually saying no, politely. But, expectation is set to the other person. So knowing when to say no, because if you don't do that, you set the wrong expectation. And then people expect something. Or people assume. So if we can be in a position where we are not able to deliver something, or make if somebody is asking for something we cannot deliver, it's okay to say no. What would be a good thing over there? When somebody asks you for something and you're not able to deliver, saying no is one thing, but what else can you do? How can you help them? Would it be fair to say yes?
You might compensate for it or provide an alternative substitute.
Absolutely. Give another option. I cannot do this, but I know somebody else who might be able to help. So for that to happen, you have to also have a strong network. No? You have to be resourceful enough so that when you have to say no, you can call upon other people. So that's where your strength and everything comes in. And yes, extending your contacts, building your network and all that. And just generally being a friend. So again, just to remind everybody, we network for these reasons. The question is, who do you network with? Who are the kind of people? You've got to be a bit strategic. When we select people to network with, do we network with anybody and everybody? How do you select? How do you know who to network with? What would you say?
Relevance.
Sorry?
Relevance? Yes.
There has to be some relevance. What else?
You need to be comfortable with the person.
You have to be comfortable with that person. So how would you find comfort with a person?
You need to know him better.
Exactly. And how would you do that? Building a rapport, exactly. So, when you meet somebody for the first time, so one is you have to get out of your comfort zone. Let me ask, when you have events over here, there are different events, of course, a lot of religious events, a lot of community events. What is the biggest number of people you would have at any one time over here? How many? I'm sure it's probably literally maybe even probably close to 1,000 maybe. More than that, right?
In the event, particular event or any event?
Any event. Give me an example of an event where you have thousands of people.
We have 30,000 on.
Fitting in one time?
We have
More complex. So during when would you have that sort of size?
We have our festivals.
Correct. And that happens every year, right?
And for the business, we had 700 people for one event. We have for business event.
How many?
700 people. 700.
700. So now when you come to these events, of course, you are not always there for business. You are there for so many different reasons. But how many of us actually make it a point to try and meet somebody new who we don't know? Or how many of you get comfortable with a group of people we know? Who is guilty of just being comfortable with the people we know? We don't want to meet anybody new. It's a bit uncomfortable making a new connection. How many of us are comfortable just being around? Sometimes. It's human nature. If you ask me, I'm very comfortable by myself. A lot of people think because of what I do, I may be very comfortable like this. But actually speaking, I'm very comfortable actually doing my own thing on my own. If I ever go to an event, I get invited to an event, I make sure I know at least 2 or 3 other people. And then what I make a point is, I say to myself, okay, today when I go here, it'll be nice just to connect with at least 3 to 5 new people who I don't know, I've not met before. With no intention, there's no intention that I must get something out of them. But it's just a good habit, making a point that, let me see, even if it means one new person every time you meet, it's a good habit. And you don't judge people. But what you do is when you meet that person, you interact, you ask questions, you listen to them, and then your mind will tell them whether you're comfortable with them. Is it the right rapport? So it's not necessary that every person you meet, you have to take it to the new level. No. But you got to give yourself a chance to connect with as many different people as you can, because that's the first step. It's only after that you can decide, do I want to now take this to another? If you find something of mutual interest. But if you don't do that, it will never happen. So growing your network strategically is good. But get yourself uncomfortable to meet new people. And the smart thing to do is when you meet new people, see if you can have a few questions. It only takes 1 or 2 questions, which you ask them and they tell you, and something will tell you, yes, there's a click, something is happening or not, right? So who do you network with? I'm going to share a story with you because you just don't know who knows who. And when we start judging people, when we start looking at somebody and saying, no, or if somebody says, I am this and this is what I do, no. If you just shy away from that, you might be missing out on big opportunities. So I'll share this story with you. This is a story a few years ago. How many of you are in the building or construction industry related to building? Many of you would be. Your community is known, right, for being in that kind of business. We have a big developer over here, and they were looking for investors for a tower. This was actually, now that I think of it, quite a few years ago, probably about 8 or 9 years ago. They were looking for an investor who would actually invest in one of the towers. So, they have their ways of looking at who can be interested in this. And how many people are in the market to invest in a whole tower? You're looking at millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, right? So every person you meet, this is not like trying to sell insurance or anything like that. You're trying to find somebody who would be interested in investing in a whole tower, not just selling one villa, one apartment, a full tower. So how do you do this? There are different ways a company would do that. They would know what they want to do. But I'm part of this organization called BNI. Some of you are familiar with BNI. And in BNI, what happens is, we have people from all walks of life, different professions, who get together every week. So in this chapter that we had a dentist. And we had this company which was represented by one of their senior managers, and there were the developers. And one of the things we do in this meeting every week, everybody gets a chance to stand up and ask what introductions they're looking for. And the members make notes. So when they're going out and about to their day-to-day work, if they meet somebody or they come across some opportunity, they can make a connection. Now, for that to happen, of course, there has to be a level of trust and credibility. So we had a dentist and we had this developer, and they had been members for a few years. So they built that relationship. The dentist every week would hear what these developers are looking for, what introductions they're looking for, what opportunities there are. And likewise, even the developer pretty much came to know everything about a dentist. You'll be surprised. Any medical professional people over here? Nobody? If I were to ask you, what do we know about dentists? How many of us have been to a dentist recently in the last 3 to 6 months? And when we go to a dentist, the dentist that you've been to, you must be having a long relationship, or you must be knowing it's a trusted dentist. We don't just go to any dentist. Right? And when we go to the dentist for whatever it is that we get done, how many of you actually have your dentist, they know everything about you, they know the kind of business you're in, they know what your hobbies are? How many of you have a relationship like that with your dentist? Some of us maybe. But the dentist, the typical dentist out there, their job is to fix your tooth and help you with that. They are not, okay, they may have an interest in what else you do, but they're not thinking business, right? But this dentist was in BNI. So part of the training that he had was getting to know all these different professions. So the beauty is, when you're in a chapter of 30, 40, 50 people, and everybody's doing different things, you get to know so much more about business out there. Otherwise, we are in our own world. You can think about, just picture yourself, if you're a dentist, who do you meet every day? You meet different patients. But other than that, your professional circle is made up of other dentists, other professionals. And that pretty much is your life. But when you're becoming part of a network like BNI, you get to know all these different people and what they do. And you have a knowledge, you build it knowledge. So talking about dentists, there are all sorts of different dentists. You have dentists for children, you have orthodontists, and then within the dentistry field, you have different things they specialize in. So you may not have to go to a dentist, but when you're part of something and a dentist in your chapter, they'll educate you. And you become, I wouldn't say an expert, but you become very knowledgeable about the field of dentistry. And that's just one profession. But when you're part of a chapter, you'll know how online works, you'll know how lawyers work, you'll know how a dentist works, you'll know what a printer does, you'll have all the technical knowledge. So picture yourself having this knowledge, you could have a conversation with anybody about pretty much anything. That's what happens in India. So anyway, going back to the story, one of our biggest business successes that we have, each week there are lots of successes happening every week in so many different chapters. But this was unique. What happened was, there was a group of investors who were in Dubai looking for opportunities. And one of these people developed an ache. He had a toothache, and he needed to see a dentist in emergency. So it just so happened that he was in the hotel, he got talking to somebody, and that somebody said, hey, you know what? I've got a dentist who can help you. So he made the introduction to the dentist. This person went to the dentist. He was in a lot of pain. So the first job the dentist had to do is try to alleviate that pain, which he did. And within a few, minutes, he was fine. And then he had to do a root canal. So obviously it was a longer procedure. But in this whole journey, the dentist started getting to know, who are you? What brings you here? Of course, you're not from here, you're from Spain. Why are you here? And the guy said, well, I'm here on a trip to see the opportunity in Dubai. What sort of opportunity are you looking for? I'm looking to see if I can invest in real estate. Oh, tell me more. And he found out that they were looking at some huge investments. He said, you know what? Let me see if I can connect you to somebody. And the dentist connected him to the real estate developer in the chapter. And within a few weeks, the next thing you know, they've signed a deal with the worth at that time, if I recall correctly, something like 50 million dirhams. Think about it. Now, was the dentist thinking, right, if I get to sign this, I'll probably get a cut out of this? The dentist was just making connections. He was not interested in that. But it was this whole thing that led to this business transaction. You can hear me clearly? Sorry. So, I just wanted to share this story because you just don't know who knows who. And the dentist was trained in making sure that he gets to know everybody beyond just being their patient. Of course, you've got to be professional. You can't be asking all sorts of personal questions. You've got to know when to ask what. But having that mindset of just getting to know people, getting to know who they are, what they do, and seeing how you can help people, that mindset is required, wanting to help others. And when you do that, you'll find that there are a lot of opportunities you get surrounded with. So that's something that we want to strive. When you meet people, first and foremost, making a point to see if you can meet somebody new, maybe once a week, maybe once a day, or it depends on your lifestyle and your business and everything else. But making it a point to meet new people. And when you meet those new people, the intention is, if there's an opportunity to build a relationship, just to help you, right? There's something else called a Dunbar number. This was somebody in the psychological field. He has done a whole study, and he has, you can actually look this up. What he's come to, the summary is, as human beings, we can only process a certain number of relationships at a given time. How many of you have at least 500 contacts on your mobile phone? Okay. How many of you have at least 1,000 contacts on your mobile phone? 2,000 contacts on your mobile phone? 3,000 contacts on your mobile phone? So, when you have 2,000 contacts on your mobile phone, what happens? happens these days is somebody calls you, you don't know them, but you save their number. And that way you build this trust building, right? Which is okay, nothing wrong with that. Or let's take LinkedIn. How many of you are in LinkedIn, that online network? And how many connections do we have on LinkedIn? Anybody who has got over 1,000 connections on LinkedIn? Over 2,000 connections on LinkedIn? Yes, there are people who have, I think probably over 5,000, of course, a lot of requests coming on a daily basis, and then I choose, everybody has a different way of deciding who they approve. But the question is, of all these contacts we have, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's on our mobile phone, how many of these can we really call relationships where if you had some sort of emergency, if you needed some help, you could actually call that person. And when you call that person knows who you are. And you are comfortable in asking them for a favor. How many such people do we have in our contact base? We may have family members, we may have friends, we may have close business colleagues, but surely not all those 2,000 people are going to work, right? So what Dunbar says is, the human brain at any given time, the maximum number of relationships that we can process is 150. Beyond that, it's very difficult to process. So you got to ask yourself, how many such relationships? It's a good exercise actually, something worth doing. Just going through the list and saying, okay, just put in a letter, if you consider them to be a A-class relationship, how many such relations will come through? And chances are, it will not be more than 150. It will probably be between 20, 30, 40, 50 for some people, and then for others, it can be, up to 150, but for very, very few people, you'll have a number more than 150. So knowing that 150 is that number. Now the thing is, you can do that exercise today, and then you can do that exercise 10 years from today. Even if today you find that you've got 150 such people, do you think 10 years from today, it will be the same 150 people? What happens in that journey? What happens? Relationships also come and go, right? New people come into your life and they become stronger. Some people go out, and that's okay, that's part of it. So always, now how can you make this? So the question really is, whether it's 150, whether it's 100, that is your network, really speaking. What is the quality of that network? Whatever the quality of the network, you as an individual are the average of the people you surround yourself with. So if you want to push yourself to be higher in all aspects, then you've got to choose who are you surrounding yourself with. Right? So knowing that and being conscious of it. So that's the other thing to know. Now, how many of you over here have a scientific and mathematical mind? Who likes formulas? Any engineers over here? One. I'm sure there are more than one engineer over here. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you for any formulas. Don't worry. But if you're interested in formulas, this is a formula of the value of your network, I told you. So I'm talking about this values, who you surround yourself with. There are many factors over here. How diverse is your network? So out of your 100, 150 people, how diverse is it? How well do you know them? The trust and credibility that you have with each other. All these factors will actually create the net value of your network. Very important. Yes, question?
I recently joined LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yes.
6 months back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to be very selective on the people I add, because I get so many connection requests. So until now, what I was doing was, I was just connecting to people from my industry.
Yes.
Because I'm from the automotive industry, I was just connecting through those people. But here you have something like diversity. So what would you advise on that?
Good question. Anybody else in the same boat over here? Maybe you have recently been, because the question is, how do you create a diverse network? What is the approach? That's the question, isn't it? So, that's a very good question. What I would suggest to you, first of all, you're going to have to dedicate a bit of time. But I'll tell you what is easier to do. The people that you're already connected with, the way LinkedIn works is, if you were to look at somebody's profile, they will share with you who their connections are. So, have you seen that? Yeah. So one approach is look at your closest contacts on LinkedIn, the people who you kind of have a really good relationship with, and be a bit curious to find out who else is in their network. And then, if you find that there is an interesting profile, right? So you got to find what is common. Maybe you have a common interest. Maybe they come from a similar place, or maybe they travel to similar places. So they don't have to be in the same industry, but you need to find some sort of commonality. And if you find that there is something, then ask for a connection. And when you make that connection, send a message. I am a friend, or explain what the relationship with your other friend, your other connection. And of course, you need to explain to them why you are interested in making a connection. So find something which would be of interest. Recently, just 2 days ago, I was in an online forum of international people, and there was a guy from Mexico. He said something which caught my attention. So I quickly sent him a message. We were on a Zoom call. I quickly sent him a message, and I said, I'm interested in more about what you have. Let's exchange contact details. I shared it on WhatsApp and my email. That's all I did. My intention was to connect with him, which was fine. I did not even look him up on LinkedIn. We were in an online forum. What he did, he went and looked me up on LinkedIn. And within a few minutes, after that particular session was over, I got a message from him. Thank you very much. I actually have seen your LinkedIn profile, and I see that you are also involved with BNI in Uganda and Kenya. I traveled to Kenya 3 times in 1 year just before COVID because I'm helping. I don't know how many of you have heard of an organization called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. He said, I am a facilitator for them, and I was representing them to do this project for EO in Kenya, and in 2019, I was able to make 3 trips. So there's already a connection. Guess what I did next? I know the founder of EO in Kenya. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, do you know this person? He has done some project work for you. He wrote back, he said, yes, it's fantastic, glowing testimonials. Literally, within a few hours, imagine the kind of relationship. Now I'm gonna connect with him on Monday or Tuesday because we want to engage with him to do something. But straight away the credibility, imagine in that short space it's short. So being a bit curious, finding out who knows who, and then if there's a common connection, reach out to them. Nothing wrong with that. Is that helpful? Yeah. So that's one approach. The other approach, of course, is when you meet people, look them up. Look me up, look other people up, when you meet them, and then just make sure. That's how you build your connection. Some people accept anybody and everybody. I am a bit cautious. I make it a point that I will only connect with somebody if I've met them, if I've spoken to them, or because of the position I am in, if I know somebody they know, if we have a common connection, I'll do a bit of research. Because these days, especially after COVID, the number of requests that they get is just, every day you're getting like 5 to 10 requests. And sometimes you even know that the moment you say accept, straight away they will start spamming and they'll start selling things to you. Sometimes I can tell, I like to play games as well. I play games sometimes, if I say, okay, let's see, how long will it take before, if I say accept this person is just going to flood me? I'm okay with that because you know what? If that happens and if I find name, I can always block and disconnect it. It's okay. That's how we live. So, when you network, there's so many different places that you can actually, if you especially want to meet. So, I say, before you even start meeting new people, look at your existing network and see what you can do to strengthen and build that. But simultaneously, now you also want to grow your network. So like you said, you're doing LinkedIn, fantastic. Which are the different networks out there? There are loads. I mean, this is just a fraction of what's out there. You know, I mentioned LinkedIn over here. I'll talk about BNI, and I'm happy to answer questions about BNI later as well. But you know, Dubai Chamber over here, they do a lot of different events. There's so many different business councils. Look at yourselves over here, what you have, and you have this committee and this little, within your community, you have a business sort of network that you've built. Like this, there's so many different networks out there. So you got to see which of these networks can be useful to you. Ask your friends, see what else other people are participating in, and be curious, learn more. But this is what I would say about identifying networks. The key to this is understanding what each of these networks do and where your place can be. I'll give you a short summary of the kind of different networks there are. There are networks where you can make a lot of casual contacts. I call them casual contacts, and they're wide and shallow. Nothing wrong with these, these are great. In fact, what you have here, and this is just a small portion, we have a lot of people online today, but like I was saying, all the events that you do, you come across, and this may be within the community, but you get a chance to meet a wide range of people on a regular basis. Similarly, there are many other networks out there which are wide. Now, what is good about it? You get a chance in a short space of time to meet lots of new people. But you may not get a chance to really strengthen the relationship. But it's a great place to just connect with lots and lots of people. And then you've got to find a way of cultivating those relationships. So if you're the kind of person who really don't make a lot of commitments, but you know the importance of networking, then see which other networks out there where you can be part of. It doesn't require you to attend every single event, but you know that whenever there is an event, you will meet a decently good size of people, and at any given moment, you'll walk away with 5, 10, 15 new contacts. Now, will all of those contacts result in something? Not necessarily, but you know that there's an opportunity each time you go, you can get something. It's a bit like, if I can use this analogy, I don't know if it's the right analogy. Fishing, anybody does fishing over here? Do you do fishing in the community over here? It's not a good analogy. But you have knowledge about how people fish. So you know when people go out to fish, there are two ways of fishing. One is you have these big nets, and you can throw a big net out on sea, and then you catch a lot of different things. And then you pick what you want and you throw the other fish. By the way, I'm a vegetarian. But the other way of fishing is, if you know specifically what you want, you throw a line. And then you've got to be patient, you throw a bait, and then you pick that, right? So this is where you can throw a big net out there, and then you've got to find a way of picking out what works for you and what not. The other kind of networks out there are what we call strong contact networks. These are narrow and deep. A good example of this, of course, is something like BNI. Now, the thing is, in this part of the world, at least we in the UAE, we don't have anything else which is similar to BNI. But in other countries, there are other organizations as well. So, not really trying to pitch BNI, but just to explain to you, these networks are made up of a smaller group of people. The commitment required is very strong. You know that each time you attend an event, you'll meet those same people. And the idea is to deepen the relationship with these people. Everybody is looking out for each other, everybody is supporting each other, but you're deepening that relationship. It's a trusted relationship. It's like your inner circle. They become your kind of board of advisors. In fact, within that, you could also have another inner circle. So it's a very strong contact. So if you're serious about growing your business, I would recommend definitely being part of one of these networks, but also looking at seeing if there's any other network like this. So being part of, at least 2 or 3 different kind of networks is good. The key is, depending on your time and, because it requires quite a bit, being part of lots of different networks is not a good idea. Pick 2 or 3, but then when you pick 2 or 3, make sure that each of those are different as well. Diversity. If you just pick one, then you've got to pick what makes sense for you. But if you're going to pick 2 or 3, then, have one casual contact. You're already part of a casual contact over here, being part of the community. But if you chose to be part of another, such contact, being part of a strong contact, and then, if you're somebody who has purpose and you want to be part of, serving, again, you may have projects within community, but you also have organizations, service organizations. How many of you have either are part of or might have definitely heard of Rotary, Lions Club? Maybe we don't have Lions Club over here. But these kind of organizations, the purpose is helping society, community work. They're not for business. But then what happens is when you become part of those, naturally, relationships happen and business can transfer. But you're not there with the intention of doing business, but you have a purpose. So those are great networks if you have that calling that you want to be doing something purposeful. There are a lot of social networks. So if you have a certain interest, a certain hobby, it could be anything, sports. So those in itself become a network. Who over here is active in some sort of sport? And what would that be, if not cricket? What other sport are you actively involved in? Football? So how often do you play?
Once a week.
Once a week. How many people do you gather?
12.
12 people? Where do you play? And when you're playing over there, there must be other people also coming. So you can't get to meet other people, right?
Sometimes there are people standing, so we call them in and we play together.
So that is an informal network because you're there to have fun and play football, but you build a relationship, you get to know people. You take an interest in knowing who is who and what they do. Some people do, some people don't. Okay, the idea is I'm not here just to do business, but just getting to know people, that is all. What other sports? So cricket could be another one, of course. Who plays cricket over here? What other sports?
Badminton.
Badminton. Who plays badminton? Now look around. Do you guys play badminton together? Just look around. There's some hands here. Do you guys play badminton together? Where do you play? And where do you play? And do you know he plays there? Did you know? Now that you know, you think that might be something where you can say, hey, So again, you could have the same partners all the time, or a game like tennis, badminton, you could say, look, let me squash all these games. Because it can be very limited in the kind of partners you have, right? So actively, if you are, all this is provided that you have an interest in wanting to do this and understanding how it can help you. So being part of this is really good. Now, I know we don't have any ladies over here, but how many of you have spouses, perhaps, or maybe daughters or sisters who are involved in business? How many of you have family members who are involved in whether it's your business or some other form of business? So this is something you can share with them as well. Ask yourself, are they part of some network out there? There are ladies' networks out there. And it's also good for women to be part of that, right? So if there are women around, I actually say, look, become part of some sort of women network. There are loads out there. Professional associations. Anybody part of a professional association, like for example, we have an association for chartered accountants, architects. IBPC, yeah. Now IBPC would be a casual contact because it's made up of Indian business professionals, right? Chartered accountants, yeah. So basically, it's a whole network just of chartered accountants. What value do you get out of that?
We have event networking. We sometimes there are some services which you may require. I don't have expertise, so we get
So you can collaborate.
technical knowledge. Yeah.
Fantastic. So finding people from the same industry where you can actually collaborate each other. But I guess those networks also provide a lot of information, a lot of education, seminars they're organizing. Anything there's an update on the profession. So that's the real. I mean, would you say that you joined that or you became a member of that so that you could actually get more business?
Not business, but
Yeah, if somebody told me that I am part of a professional association because I want to grow my business, I would say, I'm not too sure, but you can definitely benefit in so many other ways. Yes, sometimes business can also come, but if you want it focused on business, then maybe not. But it's a great place to be informed, keep yourself educated, updated, and yes, from time to time, there are collaborative opportunities that you have. Right?
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So asking yourself, if you are a professional in some industry, is there an association and are you inclined to be something part of that? And then of course we have all these online networks. Many of these, you can look it up and there are new ones coming up all the time, but the one popular, of course, these days are LinkedIn, Facebook. For some people it's a social network, in fact that's how it started. But some people now use Facebook for business. So that's another network out there. Now, think of something which I'm sure all of us use over here, but we don't consider that to be an online network. There's something that we use on our phone. WhatsApp. How many of you are part of different WhatsApp groups? Look at the number of hands out there. Now, if you look at all these different groups, there are all kinds of groups, right? There'll be a family group, maybe, or multiple family groups. There'll be also interest groups. But now can you think of a group which you can actually consider to be a network? Because that's a ready network where you can put in something there and you get something out of it. How many of you would be part of a group or groups where you can actually? So yeah, we may not consciously recall these as being networks, but they are networks. There are networks. Right? So, any questions so far? The question is, where do we network? These are all the different opportunities. The question then is, how to network? How to network? So you can network offline, meaning in person like this. You can network online. These days you blend everything. What we're doing right now is not networking, but we are in a room where there's an opportunity to connect. And people on Zoom right now, they may be getting education, but they have an opportunity to ask questions on that chat bar, but they can also see who else is participating, right? And as they start seeing that, like I was giving that example of this person, the guy from Mexico, Nicholas, my intention was not to make connections, my intention was to learn. He said something which resonated, and I said, hold on, I need to know more. So similarly over here, as I'm asking questions, somebody says something, somebody else listens and saying, hold on, I want to meet this person. That's networking. So, it's a combination, online, offline. But the key is, make this as part of your life, what you do. You don't switch it on and switch it off. It's not a switch where you say, okay, today I'm going to network. How many of you told somebody at home today that I'm going to network when you came over here? You probably said, I'm going to attend an event, but networking is happening all the time. Networking is happening. You don't have to go to an event, a networking event to network. You can network pretty much anywhere. So, the plan of action, I'm going to walk you through the plan of action of what are the things that you want to do which will keep you network ready. Are you guys ready with that? Okay. The first thing I would say is become visible. What does that mean? How to become visible? Online is easy. If you want to be visible online, so let's take the gentleman over here. What's your name, sorry? Aliyah. When you decided to go on LinkedIn 6 months ago, what inspired you to want to go on LinkedIn?
increase my professional network.
Okay. So until then, and are you part of any other online network of any sort?
WhatsApp, yes.
Yes.
Social groups.
Okay.
WhatsApp.
Any formal online network? So the first step he took was to join LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, the basic service is free, it doesn't cost anything, right? So until then, he was actually invisible. Had I met him 8 months ago, I met him in person, and then I looked him up, I would not have found you on LinkedIn, right? So you are invisible online. When you joined LinkedIn, then you became visible. But to become fully visible, what do you have to do? How many of you are also part of LinkedIn? To build visibility on LinkedIn, what do you have to do?
Share, posting.
Before that, what's the simple first step? Complete your profile. Your profile is your photo, and then it asks a question about yourself. How many of you have incomplete profiles? So you got to ask yourself, why? And I'm not here to say you must all complete. You may have your own reason. You may think, no, I'm not too active. It's okay. But if you really want results out of this, the first thing is photo. And a photo of a portrait photo of yourself, not of some landscape or some other, family photograph or some building or something. Because when people make a connection with you, they want to make a connection. They want to know who are you. And if they can't see this person, then that takes away from that visibility. So making sure that you have a good profile photo. And then your explanation. You got to make it not too long, not too short. Provide enough information so that when someone is looking you up, it gives them enough to want to, or to make a decision whether to connect with you or not. So that's visibility. That's the first step of visibility. What would be the second step of visibility? Once you've done that, start connecting with people. So being visible. So this is online. How do you make yourself visible offline? We're all here offline. Can we say we are all visible right now? How can you enhance your visibility? Tell me, other than myself right now over here, who do you think is the most visible person today? Maybe, yeah, on your table. Yes. Who else can we all agree is possibly the most visible? When I say visible, I don't just mean visually, but yes, thank you very much. Thank you. This is somebody sitting at the back of the room. Maybe he's not, if he's never met Ali before, he doesn't even know what Ali looks like because Ali is looking at me. But why do you say Ali? Exactly. Now again, egos can come in. Everybody, have you heard of that child in class who wants to answer every question? We don't want that. But looking at ways of how can your presence be known to others, adding value, contributing. How many of you are wearing that little sticker that you were given? How many of you were offered the sticker and said, "Nay, I don't need this sticker"? Somebody might have said that, right? How many of you thought, you know what, I got this sticker, I'm going to do something else. Somebody wrote my name and stuck it, but I'm actually going to put a red circle around it or something like that. The point I'm trying to make is finding a way to make yourself visible, either by adding value, saying something. How else do you think you'd be visible amongst people? So Ali, yes, definitely stands out, but yes, sir.
Sorry, I don't know how relevant this is, but your dressing also really makes a lot
Fantastic.
Probably you see now what I'm seeing here, your socks is so so attractive. So eyes go there. With that way, the way you dress and the way you go for events and all.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't just open my wardrobe and say whichever pair of socks came. When I'm at a speaking event, I make sure that I brand myself. Our brand colors are red. I want to make sure that I wear at least. I can't wear a red suit. I can actually, but I don't know how good it would look. But I can wear a red pair of socks. And the best thing was, as Anand Bhai was walking me in, I knew that if I'm coming to something like this, I would have to remove my shoes. You saw that what I was wearing. I was actually wearing boots. So my boots actually come all the way up. So normally you're not able to see them. Even if I lifted my trousers slightly, you don't see them. But I knew that I was coming here, I would have to remove them so I could show off my socks. And they stand out, right? Yeah, the way you dress up, being professional. Being professional is very important. The way you present yourself. And when you get a chance, in some forums, if you get a chance to introduce yourself, being prepared with your introduction. Things like that. So being visible is important. Then making it a point to build solid relationships. So how can that work? Building solid relationships. What are the different aspects? Today we're not shaking hands for safety reasons. But if you're shaking hands, a firm handshake is important, right? Facial expressions, smile, that's important. Making sure that you have diversity, so you meet different people. Find a way of them calling them up and following up with them, maintaining that relationship. So your follow-up action should be, make yourself visible, try and create a diverse network, build solid relationships, so have continuous interaction with them, and maintain that. Just making those calls, hello, how are you? And always remembering, it's all about helping others. We have a philosophy in our organization called Giver's Gain. Mindset of wanting to help others with no expectation whatsoever. If you do enough of that, it all comes back in one way or the other. And then, of course, being very, very strategic. There's a nice photo out there. So somebody had mentioned strategic. Don't, yes, I say everybody can get an opportunity. Don't underestimate who knows who. But at the same time, you've got to be a bit smart. Because otherwise, time is precious for all of us. So making sure that we associate ourselves with the right people for the right reasons. How much more time do we have? If I wanted to share 5 shocking business mistakes to avoid, but based on time, this will be a bonus. Fantastic. 5 minutes. Everybody good with so far? I'm going to quickly share the 5, this is a bonus that I had, 5 mistakes that you can make when you're out networking. The first one is being a hunter. Like I said, have a giver's game mindset. You're not out there to just collect lots of cards and try to spam people. You're there to farm and build relationships. So the first thing you want to do is always make sure that you're building relationships. You're talking to people, getting to know them, seeing how you can help them. The worst thing you can do is move from group to group to group. You got to take time. This takes time. That's important. Secondly, when you meet somebody, I don't know if anybody has heard of this term, verbal diarrhea. What is verbal diarrhea? How many of you have met people and they don't even give you a chance to talk? The moment they say hello, it's just them talking. And then after 10, 15 minutes, they're gone. Have you all met people like that? And in that, they feel really good, but they've not built a relationship, and you're probably switched off a long time ago. Do you want to be that kind of person? Right? You don't want to be the kind of person when I ask that question, people are thinking of you. You can all think of somebody else, So be careful. I think this is the same all of us can relate to. We all got 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them proportionately. And I would say, learn and master the art of asking questions. Have just a few questions. All it takes is having 2 or 3 questions, and then they can do talking, but now they're answering your question, and you're listening to them. So these are some examples. See what works for you best. But try and be interested rather than interesting. So let them do all the talking. And when they do that, you can listen and absorb a lot, and then you can make a decision because you've learned a lot about that. I use this example. I know we don't frequent casinos, we don't even have them over here. But if anybody knows what happens in Las Vegas, they're dealing out cards. What I meant over here is business cards. You don't want to be the person who's just dishing out business cards. Business cards are there for a reason. What I would say to you is treat those business cards as if they were 100 notes. Would you go out dishing business cards left, right, center if you knew that each one of those is worth 100 dirhams? So when would you give out a business card? When is the right time to give out a business card? I know in certain cultures, in certain ways, the first thing when you meet somebody is your business card and they give you, and that's just a formality, right? But in events, the smart thing to do is build a relationship first, and if appropriate, and if asked, then give out a business card. I do that at least when I can. How many of you have given out business cards and then next day you've been bombarded with lots of emails and phone calls? You don't want that to happen. So similarly, don't dish out business cards. Look after them very, very carefully. And there's something called the networking disconnect. When people attend networking events, they're looking to see if they can sell something. And yet, when you ask those people, are you there to buy anything? They'll say, no, I'm here to sell. If everybody's there to sell and pitch, and nobody's there to buy, there's a disconnect. But if everybody goes to an event with an active interest in wanting to know the other person and helping the other person, then you can actually get some results. So asking yourself, can you build relationships? That's most important. Wherever you go, like I said, you can go anywhere. You can go to a wedding, you could be in the airplane, you could be in a queue in the supermarket at Spinneys or Lulu, and you could connect with people. And when you do that, you could still network. You could still, build relationships. But again, I'm not saying that if you're looking for business, you go to all these different events. What I'm saying is, those are opportunities, but honor the event first. Whatever purpose you're there for, if you're at the wedding, surely you don't want to be dishing out business cards to talk business. Honor the event, but you will get into conversation, get to knowing if there is an opportunity. You may not even need to discuss things there, but at least build some rapport which you can connect with later. And then, in Vienna we call the VCP formula. What does VCP stand for? There's a process. I talked about building visibility first. That's the first step. When you network, the first thing you always want to do is make yourself visible. Once you're visible, you're going to start making yourself credible. Build your credibility. People want to trust you. They're going to start, knowing who you are, and then that can lead to business ultimately. So that's the process you want to do. Make sure you're visible and you're credible, and that'll lead to profitability. And to build credibility, all these things matter. Your character, your competency, how good you are, all these things are important, and you build credibility. So that's important. Men and women, again, I know it could be a cultural thing, but understanding how men and women network differently, that's important, especially if you're dealing with somebody of the opposite sex. They think differently. All of us know our spouses. They're all wired differently than us, right? So understanding that men and women are differently wired and respecting that, that's important. And again, like I said, it's not just about you. If you can take an interest in other people, you'll get far, far better results. So I thought I'll just quickly share those tips with you. Avoid those things, and you can be really good at networking. So with that, again, to repeat what I said at the beginning, who you surround yourself with, that's key. Ask yourself currently, who do you surround yourself with, and what are your goals? What are your aspirations? Where do you want to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years from today? And importantly, see if you can choose your network or build your network so that in that time frame, you actually get to be where you are. So with that, we did have a little exercise, but I guess we may not have time for it, or we don't even have the resources for this. But before you leave, if you want to make a connection with somebody, I'll show you a smart way of doing that, especially in this current time when we're not exchanging business cards. You want to avoid contact, right? What you can do, if you're on LinkedIn, you can pull out your phone, go to your LinkedIn app, and what you'll find is on the top right over here, you'll see this icon. If you click on that, you get a choice with your QR code, or you can scan somebody else's QR code. You guys could scan this right now, but you could scan somebody else's QR code and automatically you'll be connected on LinkedIn. You could do the same thing on WhatsApp. Look up the settings on your WhatsApp on your mobile phone. Click on this icon over here. This will come up. If somebody else scans this, they'll automatically be connected to you on WhatsApp. So it's a nice way these days with technology without having to exchange business cards to connect with each other. And with that, what I'd like to do is end with this particular quote from Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know how many of you might have heard of Robert Kiyosaki. He's a famous author, book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He teaches financial literacy to both youngsters and adults. And he says the richest people in the world look for and build networks, everybody else looks forward. And that does not mean that you got to be employed. So you got to be an employee. You can still be employed and be rich. When he talks about being rich, it's not just about money in the bank. He talks about having a network, having a wealthy network, because that's a true measure of what can be achieved with you. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for listening, participating, and of course, if you've got any questions, I'll be around. With that, I'd like to hand it back to the organizers. Thank you very much once again, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bijay Shah. It was really very insightful, and taking networking in a different perspective. Till now, yes, we've all been guilty of doing casual networking. It's a part of a community culture. You know, we always come in, we know all the faces, we are meeting everyone, giving a hi, hello exchange, but we never look at it from that angle. To give in a couple of more insights, I would like to call upon a couple of our community members. જેનો પોતાનો બી એક એક્સપિરિયન્સ આપશે કે નેટવર્કિંગ એ લોકોને કેવી રીતના બેનિફિટ કરવું છે અને એના શું પ્રોઝ એન્ડ કોન્સ છે. ફર્સ્ટ એન્ડ ફોરમોસ્ટ मैं ઇન્વાઇટ કરું છું ચુઝર ભાઈ સાહેબ વઝીરીને. आप प्लीज यहाँ आવીને થોડો એક ઇનસાઇટ આપે. થેન્ક યુ.
થેન્ક યુ મિસ્ટર વિજય. થિંક સગલું કવર કરી ચૂક્યા છે પોતે. હવે નેટવર્કિંગના બારામાં જે મારો એક્સપિરિયન્સ છે, તમારા વ્યૂઝ છે, એકદમ મુખ્તસરમાં શેર કરું છું. તો નેટવર્કિંગના એકચ્યુઅલી આમ જોવા જઈએ તો બે ફાયદાઓ નજર આવે છે. એક છે ટેન્જિબલ બેનિફિટ છે અને એક ઇનટેન્જિબલ બેનિફિટ છે. ટેન્જિબલ બેનિફિટ્સમાં તો આપણે સમજ પડી રહી છે શું છે કે આપણે નેટવર્કિંગ છે, આપણું સેલ્સ ઇન્ક્રીઝ થાય છે, આપણે લીડ્સ મળે છે, ઇન્કમ ઇન્ક્રીઝ થાય છે આપણો. પણ ઇન્ટેન્જિબલ બેનિફિટ્સ છે એ બી ઘણી વખત આપણે ઘણો ફાયદો કરતા હોય છે. ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ, આપણે ઘણી વખત રેફરન્સની જરૂર પડે છે. ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ, આપણે કોઈ પીઆરઓને પૂછવું હોય છે, લીગલ પોઈન્ટ ઓફ વ્યૂ પૂછવું હોય છે, બેંકના કોઈ રૂલ્સ પૂછવા હોય છે, ડૉક્ટરને કોઈ રેફરન્સીસ પૂછવા હોય છે. આપણે નોર્મલી આપણે સગલાને જે મને ભાઈએ કીધું કે આપણે ઓળખતા હોય છે, બીજાને ખબર બી હોય છે ફેસથી, નામથી, પણ કોન્ટેક્ટમાં નહીં હોતા. એને પછી આપણે ફોન કરીએ છીએ તો આપણે થોડું હેઝિટેટ બી થઈએ છીએ વાત કરવામાં, એના સાથે ડિસ્કશન કરવામાં. અને આપણે ફોર્મલ કોન્ટેક્ટમાં હોઈએ છીએ તો આપણે કોન્ફિડન્ટલી પૂછી શકીએ છીએ અને આપણે પાસે રિસ્પોન્સ બી બરાબર આવે છે કે આપણે બી ફાયદો કરી શકીએ, આપણા કોઈ ફ્રેન્ડ સર્કલમાં હોય મૂવીને ફાયદો કરી શકે. તો નેટવર્કિંગનો એક બેનિફિટ આપણે મહેસૂસ સગલાએ કીધો જ હશે. આપણે કોમ્યુનિટી પ્રોસ્પેક્ટિવ છે અને જોઈએ આપણે અલહમદુલિલ્લાહ આપણી કમ્યુનિટી એની વેલ ઓર્ગેનાઇઝ કમ્યુનિટી છે આપણા પાસે. આપણામાં લિટરેસી રેટ બી अच्छो છે, હાઈ છે. નોટ ઓનલી ધ લિટરેસી રેટ પણ આપણું જે એજ્યુકેશન લેવલ છે એ બી આપણું એક ઘણું હાઈ છે. એજ્યુકેશન લેવલ, ટેલેન્ટ બી આપણા પાસે છે. તો હમણાં આપણે એમ જરૂરત મહેસૂસ છે કે આપણે એક આપણા પાસે ઓપોર્ચ્યુનિટી છે કે આપણા પાસે એક ફોર્મલ નેટવર્કિંગ હોય, ફોરમ હોય. હમણાં આપણે જોયું છે કે આપણા પાસે લોકલ બી છે, ઇન્ટરનેશનલ લેવલ પર છે. એના વોટ્સઅપ ગ્રુપ્સ છે, કપલ ઓફ એપ્સ છે કે જે કનેક્ટિંગ વુમેનનો કન્સેપ્ટ તો છે એની અંદર, પણ એ નેટવર્કિંગના ફોર્મલ કન્સેપ્ટ એમાં નથી. એમાં શું થાય નોર્મલી કે એક ગ્રુપમાં હોય છે કે મને આ વસ્તુ જોઈએ છે તો કોઈ મને કોન્ટેક્ટ આપો, યા સપ્લાયનો કોન્ટેક્ટ આપો, યા તો મારા પાસે આ ચીઝ છે મને વેચવી છે, સેલ કરવી છે. પણ જે નેટવર્કિંગનો જે કન્સેપ્ટ છે કે જે ક્વોલિફાઈડ રેફરલ્સ મિલે જેનાથી આપણે લીડ મિલે તે મિસિંગ છે. એક ઓપોર્ચ્યુનિટી છે કે આપણે આને ગુજરાતના તક આપણે કરી શકીએ છીએ. ખેલમાં આપણે દુઆ કરીએ કે આલી કદમ વાળાની ઉપર શરીફને પૂરા દરાજ કરે અને આપ જે ફરમાવતા હોય છે હંમેશા આપણું જે બયાનનું આપણે જે નિચોડ લઈએ છીએ ને આપણે તેમ જ હોય છે કે આપવાના કન્સેપ્ટ પર ફરમાવતા હોય છે કે આપો ના કે લો. તો આને આ કન્સેપ્ટ એ પ્રૂવન કન્સેપ્ટ છે ને જે છે કે ભાઈ ગીવર્સ આપણે જે છે તો આપણે આપશું તો ડેફિનેટલી આપણે ક્વોલિફાઈડ લીડ્સ આપશું, રેફરન્સ આપશું, બિઝનેસ આપશું તો ડેફિનેટલી આપણે એનો રિવર્સ બેનિફિટ મળવાનો છે. આપણે ઇવન કે વીએનએલ કન્સેપ્ટ બી છે કે વોટ ગોઝ અરાઉન્ડ કમ્સ અરાઉન્ડ, રાઈટ? આ એક એવો ટેગલાઇન છે. તો આ આપણે આને મદ્દેનજર રાખતા हुआ આપણે આપણી કોમ્યુનિટીમાં બી એક પ્રોપર ફેમાં લોન્ચ કરીએ તો સરકારને ફાયદો થઈ શકે છે. શુક્રિયા.
Shukran bhai sahab. Since Mr. Bijay Shah is a part of a formal networking organization called BNI, Business Networking International, એ લોકોનો એક બીજો ઘણો જ અચ્છો એક ટેગલાઇન છે, કન્સેપ્ટ છે કે ક્યારે બી આપણે કોઈ બી ઇવેન્ટ્સમાં જઈએ તો remember the word network. It is not net sit, not net eat. It is network. તો જ્યારે બી આપણે કોઈના પાસે કોઈના ઇવેન્ટ્સમાં જઈએ, કોઈ બી ટાઈપના ઇવેન્ટ હોય, obviously keeping in mind હાલાતના હિસાબથી, you should always work on that concept. One more testimonial from a member of Jettab as well as a formal networking organization. We'd like to call upon Mr. Abbas Hamidi.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. खुदा अलीगढ़ मौलाना शेख नज़ार से क़यामत दराज कर जो. I have been a part of BNI since last 5 years and it has been an absolutely amazing journey. I have built my personality. मैं एम समझो छू के लोगों से बात केम करवानी, नेटवर्किंग करवाऊं. पहला आपने जाइए तो आपने एम था कि मैं कोने मालूम शू बात करूं. What am I supposed to tell them? हालांकि मारू बिजनेस अच्छू छे, मैं घणું બધું કામ કરું છું. પણ મેં શું કહું, કેવી રીતના વાત કરું? તો મેં જ્યારે બીએનઆઈ જોઈન કર્યું તો બીએનઆઈ માં મને ઘણા લોકો અલગ-અલગ પર્સનાલિટી મળી, અલગ-અલગ એ લોકોનું જે કામ કરતા રહે મળ્યા. તો એ લોકોથી વાત કરું તો ખબર પડે કે હાઉ વી આર સપોઝ ટુ ડુ બિઝનેસ. હવે મેં મારા દોસ્તોને ઘણીવાર કીધું કે મને નેટવર્ક મેં એક ઓર્ગેનાઇઝેશનમાં જાઉં છું પણ મારા દોસ્તોએ વધારે ઇમ્પોર્ટન્સ ના લીધું. એ લોકોને મારું કે ભાઈ હા તું મને તારા મારું બિઝનેસ કેમ કરવાનું, કેમ તું કેવી રીતના શીખવશે? I know my business more. And they have always said that you can't waste your time going to a group. But it is nothing like that. When you go in a network, it is how you play the game. It is not what the game is good or bad. It's how you play the game. એટલે આપણે networking ને ઘણા beginning level થી જ શરૂ કરી દેવું જોઈએ when we come to business. કેમ કે networking જેટલું ગ્રોથ હશે ને જેટલું આપણે એ ગેમમાં પાર્ટિસિપેટ ને રમતા હશે એટલા અચ્છા આપણે થતા જશું. I would give an example. I know a person in my chapter in BNI. There was a guy called John, a Filipino હતો અને અમે લોકો આમ જ બેઠેલા વાત કરી રહ્યા હતા. તો he cleaning કરતો હોય બધી ચીજનું. તો આમ જ વાત નીકળી તો એમને કીધું કે બસ મને એમિરેટ્સ એરલાઇન્સમાં મેં બધી એરલાઇન્સનું ક્લીનિંગનું મને કોન્ટ્રાક્ટ મળ્યું છે. તો તે દિવસે અમે વાત કરી, મને બી સ્ટ્રાઇક ના થયું કે if I can be a part of something like that. But ये मैंने राते 2:30 वागे फोन कीधो because एक मीटिंग में हसे ने I was awake, मैं कई मूवी જોઈ રહ્યો હતો. તો મને ફોન કીધો ये તો કે જો मैं કાલે મીટિંગ માં જઈ રહ્યો છું and see if you can come along. એમ થયું કે એમિરેટ્સ એરલાઇન્સ માં હમે we sell wheels and casters. So એમિરેટ્સ એરલાઇન્સ વાળા જ્યારે એને મીટ કીધું મેં તો એક રેફરન્સ હતો ઓલરેડી પહેલા કે मैं जॉन સાથે આવ્યો છું તો they are already working with John. અને જોન એ કોન્ટ્રાક્ટ ને લઈને આવ્યો છે તો મીનિંગ કે અચ્છો જ હશે. તો એ હિસાબથી એમિરેટ્સ એરલાઇન્સ was in 2 days I got a PO from Emirates Airlines for wheels and casters. This is how powerful it is. It is not that you're wasting time or you should not be less interested in going to a networking organization. Thank you. खुदा अलीगढ़ मौलाना university में सारा दिन दराज कर.
Thank you Abbas bhai for a positive and a very insightful benefit about formal networking. Before we take questions from this audience as well as online, I'll leave you with one more thing. जो अपने जाने की network establish करिए, तो આપણે જોઈએ છે કે આ શું કામ કરે છે, આ શું કામ કરે છે, પણ એમ બી ધ્યાન રાખવાનું છે કે આપણે આપણા નેટવર્કને આપણું બિઝનેસ નથી કરવું. We don't want to sell to our network, but we want to sell through our network. That is a very important point કે આપણે જરીએથી એ લોકોના જરીએથી આપણે કેવી રીતના બિઝનેસને વધાવી શકે છે. Mr. Vijay, we'll take a few questions from the audience here as well as we have some from the online.
Sure.
पहले अपने यहाँ ऑडियंस में से कोई क्वेश्चंस हो तो प्लीज रेज योर हैंड.
As you referred earlier that, like when you attend the event like wedding or business event also, so there are, 100 of people there and you have limited time, like 2 hours or something like that. So how we judge how we do the network, okay, this person I should target, or is there something, what you advise on it?
Thank you. Yeah. So, like we said, when you attend another event, honor the event first. We're not going to talk business there. But within 2 or 3 minutes, you may be able to make some connection, meaning, okay, so you got to be able to ask the right question, which makes it interesting. And the moment you do that, you also got to be prepared to make them want to know more about you and who you are. So you got to master that. Now, you can leave that session, you meet somebody for the first time, you can tell them, you can introduce yourself and get to know, ask them some right questions. 5-10 minutes and say, you know what, let's meet up for a coffee or something. Would you mind if I call you maybe tomorrow or this week? And I would like to know more about, when you show an interest in somebody, if you tell somebody, I'd love to know more about your story, or I'd like to know more about how you started this, people will be happy to actually say, yeah, let's do that, no problem. People love talking about their success. So like that, then you take it to the next level. So in that moment, on this minute, then you move on. Because you don't want to discuss all those things, and that is not the place and time to be talking further. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, is there a better startup conversation besides saying, hi, what do you do? Because that's usually the trend, if I'm sitting somebody here, hi, I'm a super. Is there somewhere better that you can start off with where you can be more engaging with the person in front or when you start off a conversation?
There is a second question. The moment they say what you do, there is a better question after that. You can ask them, how did you get into that? So, asking somebody about what they do, that's a tricky one. Now, if somebody asks you what to do, then there are very smart ways of answering. That you can get a bit more creative where they want to know more. So, for example, what do you do? Let me ask you.
I'm into freelance IT networking and I'm into also the steel trading business.
Okay, pick one of those two.
The steel trading business.
Steel trading. What problems do you help solve, or what solutions do you provide? When in the steel trading, what actually are you doing? How are you helping people? What solutions are you providing?
In that regards, it's not really solutions. Solutions-wise, it's about there's certain kind of materials. If you want to build something innovative in your location, I have the right materials for you to.
And what does that do?
That helps in sorting out your particular item what you wanted to create.
So what you're going to do, you're going to take some time in that. But if I want to ask you, what do you do? You say steel trading, right? For steel trading, I may say, okay, fine. What else, So you're going to make it really interesting. So that one line you just got to say, if somebody asks you what you do, if you tell them, I can help make sure that your home you live in or this building does not break down in an earthquake or something like that. Make it interesting. Then so, how do you do that? What do you do? Then the conversation goes. So when somebody asks you, you have control of that. But to ask somebody what they do, that's a bit of a tricky one. Unless somebody has got a solution over here. Has anybody got found a way of finding out what somebody does in an interesting way rather than just asking them what you do. Because yes, that can be a bit uncomfortable. What I would tell you is, rather than that, sometimes depending on the event, I can ask them, so do you come here often? What do you get out of this? If you're in a networking event or something. Because they will tell you, I'm here to learn, or oh, okay, what do you do? Then it's okay. It's okay to ask what you do, but giving a bit of a twist, and then they'll be okay to answer that. But you are in a much better control if somebody asks you what do you do. Asking somebody what they do can be a bit. Now, you could start the conversation by complimenting them. Oh, wow, I like your socks. Tell me more. If somebody told me about my socks, straight away I'll talk about the brand. Well, it's part of my brand. Oh, what's your brand? And then you move on to that. So you've got to find how that works. Practice. Any other question? Yes.
Before I go on to question, just a small, I'd like to make a note on this, that any networking has to be structured, first thing. Informal networks do not work that well. It doesn't go beyond 2 meetings. Okay. The structured networking takes with a purpose and a serving. Second thing is like leaders are born, are networkers born, or networkers like leaders can be made, networks can be made with training and purpose. Third, does BNI or any structured networking, does it teach something? Does it have teaching, or just is networking? Every morning we go, do networks and come back.
Okay.
Does it teach us like presentation skills, the speech skills, the handshaking skills, the soft skills we call this? And is it for every kind of people getting up in the morning, early in the morning and going?
So 4 questions.
Yeah.
I have to remember 4 questions.
It's a testimonial come question because I've been doing networks.
Okay.
And networks.
So these are 4 questions, right?
Yes, 4 different questions.
Okay. So I'm going to try and remember that. I'm not answering them in that order.
I will do that.
Good. Let me answer your second question first. Your second question was?
Networkers are born.
So let me answer that first. No, networkers are not born. Networking is a skill that you acquire. If you're willing to put in the time to educate yourself and learn, networking can be taught. Unfortunately, networking is a soft skill which is not taught in schools and colleges. So that leads on to the third question. In BNI, do we provide that education? Yes. So being part of BNI, being part of a network of BNI, one of our URLs is it's not just a platform where you can network. We actually teach. We have workshops. It's part of the membership. Every week when you attend a meeting, you already get a nugget, education nugget. But we have a lot of resources. We have books, we have online workshops, we have a lot of videos, podcasts. It's ongoing. In fact, one of our core values is lifelong learning. We believe in lifelong learning all the time. Even 15 years on in that particular career now, I just finished 10 hours of training yesterday and the day before. You never stop learning. So that's the third question, combined. Now, going back to the first question, what was it?
Structured.
Is it necessary to have structure?
Structured and going through a structured program.
Yeah.
How beneficial it is going through a rules and regulations, not structured, I would say, to go through a rule and regulation that this you have to do, this you don't have to do. This
Okay, quickly, let me ask, who over here has attempted to get fit by doing some sort of exercise, some sort of fitness training? Who over here is trying to do that? Okay. There are different ways to do this. One is you take up a coach, you go to a gym, and you follow a certain structure. And if you do all of those, chances are, and yes, you have to make time for it, you have to pay, but the results, you can pretty much be assured. The other approach, which also works, is, you know what, I'll walk every day, I'll eat good food. You don't need a coach, you don't need a structure. Does it work? Yes and no. It all depends on how committed you are. So before that, you need to educate yourself the right kind of food, what exercise to do, depending on your condition, whatever, if it's weight loss required, whatever. So you don't need to be part of any of this structure, and yet you can get the results. But are those guaranteed results? No. Will the structure give you guarantee? Also no, but the probability of you actually getting your results is much higher. So there is no right or wrong, the structure gives you. Just to, again, talking about community, our fathers and grandfathers, like I said earlier, they've built up very prosperous, successful businesses. And if you look at your community network, what we do, tell me one thing, correct me if I'm wrong, in your community, world over, you have this thing about making sure nobody ever goes hungry. Every household will receive, what do you call that? As in, nobody ever on a single day will go hungry anywhere in the world, right? How do you do that? There is some structure that you have around it. It may not be a written structure, but somehow your community manages world over. High respect for that. Nobody can actually really achieve that. So there must be some science around that. I mean, using the example, similarly, our fathers, grandfathers, when they built businesses, networking was kind of inbuilt. There may not have been a formal Western style structure to it, but there was some structure to that. I think for the younger generation, some of these teachings might have been missed out, and taking some from this Western, you can put a structure around it. But ultimately, there is a structure. And the last question I didn't answer.
Last is commitment. What is the commitment and in which I'm talking about myself, that the program is really good, it teaches us, it gives a lot of business, it gives a proper training purpose. But if I'm not committed, if I'm not able to do anything, so nothing happens. So informal or formal doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference. But one thing to that you said, I think, was timing. Our meetings take place early in the morning for a certain reason, because we have found that to be the most successful. That does not mean that if we did this at a different time, in the evening, in the lunchtime, it will not work. It will work. But it requires teamwork. What we found is, in the morning, it works for most people, because that's the only time there's no distraction, there's no other social commitment, there's no traffic. Whereas when we tried this in the evening, if I were to ask everybody over here, do you want to be part of this? And they all say yes. And I say, okay, 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Chances are a lot of people are saying that's too early. So I say, okay, what time works? And then we all agree that let's make it 12 o'clock noon or 6 o'clock in the evening. And everybody says yes. To keep that commitment every single week, you may be committed, but it doesn't work for a lot of people. 1 week, 2 weeks, and then but in the morning, there's no excuse. Now, the only excuse is if you want more sleep. So we are now open to doing groups at different times, provided there's enough people and there's enough interest. But commitment is still required, no doubt about it. Otherwise, you will not get the results. Yes?
As important it is to open up a question, how do you do it? How do you actually close the conversation? Because follow-ups in a difficult time is very difficult. You might do it over WhatsApp, you might not be able to do it in person. So how do you close the conversation properly? That's the question.
That's a good question, and I would say politely, because sometimes it's just going to be polite about it, right? So a few techniques that I use. I will at some point, I'll say, it's been great meeting you, thank you so much, and I'll just move on. If I find that it's very difficult to, but the ideal way to do that is see if you can connect them to somebody else. So if I'm talking with Bijay over here, and after some point I'm like, okay, I need to move on. I said, Bijay, I still need to meet a few other people. I'm sure you have too. You are here to network as well. So that's one way of making an exit. The other one is, if you find somebody who is quite, I said, Bijay, before I go, let me just connect you to somebody else over here. I'm sure you'll find an interesting conversation with. Make that connection and then you move on. Again, it's an art you got to. Sorry. Yes.
Now that I've closed the conversation, how do I follow up with them next time? Because they might be busy. Maybe
so ask permission. Before you finish, always ask permission. So I would say to Bijay, fantastic meeting you. I'd love to actually get to know more about this. Can I call you? What is the best way to reach you? Again, being polite about it. So many people say, yeah, you can. But if I want to qualify that, You know, if I say, can I call you? And he'll say, polite, he's not going to say, no, don't call me. He'll probably say yes. Then I go to qualify that and say, okay, when is a good time for me to call you? How busy are you this week? Can I call you on Thursday? Would Thursday afternoon work for you? You will know from the body language he's going to respond or not. But yeah, ask permission first, always.
Few meetings, what is the criteria that we can trust these people or their credibility or measures?
Good question. So when anybody joins a chapter, there's a committee who interviews them. They do some initial checks. You know, do they have their license? Have they been around for a while? They check their references. So they do the initial checks to admit them to be part of the group. But that still does not mean, we always tell our members, please, just because somebody is now a member, you still have to build your trust with them. But the fact that they are a member means that some initial checks have been done. That's the first step. Then, before you even do business with them, get to meet them, get to know more about them. Ask around other members, has anybody done business with this person? If they have, talk to them. You got to do your own due diligence. So you know, within a short time, you'll establish that. Okay, like for example, I'll give you an example of that Philippine person, John. John was able to connect him. John called him at 2:30 in the morning because John already had a relationship, a trust built in that, you know, I can call this person at 2:30 because they must have. Where is how long did you know John before John called you at 2:30 in the morning?
1 year. More than.
It was a 1-year relationship for that.
And that's why I'm asking you, few meeting, how we can judge that person or like this? Some criteria which.
This may not be the right time, perhaps, because we are too long a conversation. Again, we have a lot of education around that. We have books about what to look for, what body language, what questions to ask. So there is education around how we can do that. Yes. Don't just dive into that blindly. Absolutely. Yes.
Just looking at experiencing such a good presentation from your side and very strong testimonials from Bijay and from Abbas. Probably even I would like to be a part of the BNI.
Most welcome.
Thank you. So I understand that there are certain chapters. So can we also select in which chapter we want to go into, like, because I have attended one initially, I remember 2-3 years back, I had come for somewhere in between or invited me. And but I would like to see like which all chapters are there, which one I would be like.
So there are a few steps. First and foremost, currently there are 16 chapters out there and more coming up. So the first criteria is, we only allow one person in every trade or profession to be part of the chapter. So what is it that you do? What business are you in? Automotive. What? Do you sell spare parts? Are you garage?
Spare parts, trading, vehicle sales.
Okay, so for us, those are two different categories: supply and trading of spare parts and auto sales. So we consider those to be two. So one is you'll have to decide if you want to be part of this, which of those divisions you want to focus on. Assume that it's spare parts, just for this example. You got to find out if there's a vacancy for that category in the chapter, because if there's somebody else also doing spare parts in the chapter, then they will not admit you. We avoid any direct competition. So first is finding out where there's a vacancy. Once you've done that, then visiting that chapter as a visitor, just to get a feel, because each chapter has the same structure, same system all over the world. We have 10,000 chapters, 275,000 members in 70 countries. If you go to any BNI meeting, the structure is the same. But what you got to look at is, it's made up of people. You go to one chapter and you go to another chapter, the structure is the same, but the feel, you may like one chapter, just the whole energy around it. Somebody else will like another chapter. So visit a chapter, get a feel, get to know a few of the members, and then identify other professions which have a synergy with you. So for example, if you're into spare parts, which other businesses can do business with you on a regular basis? Who can you refer to? Who can refer back to you? Identify that. So it'll take maybe a couple of visits. So I would say always visit 2 or 3 chapters, Make a couple of visits of the same chapter, you'll know that, right? Talk to people and you'll know that, right, this is the right chapter to apply to.
So when do you become a member? Like at what point?
So what happens is, once you know that you are ready to join the chapter, you make an application. Then they conduct an interview. And after the interview, they'll tell you, okay, we have approved you. And they invite you to actually, there's a little ceremony, and you officially get inducted to become a member.
So, Mr. we can give you more details on that, okay, after the session. We'll take one more last question from the audience and one from online then.
I know we are pressing out of time, but I would just like to say that even I have been a BNI member since 2 years, so this will be my 3rd year. And it's an amazing platform for networking. And all I would like to say, your network is your net worth. So that's the main important thing. And the most important other thing is only one person per profession is there in your chapter. So there's no conflict of business. And being set with rules and regulations, it's an amazing thing. A live example from my side is during the COVID time when business was less, and we've been networking not only from this region. We've tried, and when I asked a few people, they've had connects in Africa. So there are a lot of people who got connected with me in Africa, and a lot of diverse business relations were developed. So I strongly recommend you to consider this.
Silver score, right?
That's right.
So ask him, when was the last time we had an interaction? When was the last time we met or had an interaction?
Probably during the Zoom online meeting.
But, you know, it's probably been about a couple of years since we met.
That's right, absolutely.
We have 600 people. How is he visible? He must have made some impression on me to remember this is what it does. It was sorted to gift items. So I'm just trying to showcase that visibility, this is what you learn in BNI. Talking about, you know, presentation skills, being visible.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bijay, we'll take one more question. It's actually a group of questions all boiling down to the same thing. It's like the practical approach to break ice in order to start networking with anybody.
That's a good question. Practical approach to break ice. So again, similar to that question, what's the first question you?
Like, how do you approach, break ice, and then take the next step in that relationship?
So I'll tell you the few questions that I start off with to break ice. First of all, I will not just meet somebody for the first time and ask a question. I'll be around a group of people. I'll kind of sense what sort of conversations are going on. And then if appropriate, see if I know that they run a business, I'll kind of have figured out, or somebody else will tell me that, yeah, he's a business person who does this. You know, I'll try and find out from others what business is he in. So that's the other tip the gentleman was asking. Rather than asking somebody what business are you in, see if somebody else can tell you what business they're in. And now you have some knowledge. If somebody told me that he's in spare parts, I go up there and my first question is, I'm told you're in spare parts. Tell me, how did you get into that business? So that's one question I find. Tell me, how did you get into that business? It's a great question. People want to talk about that. Everybody has a different story. How they got started. It could be a family business, it was a passion, something or the other. That's one great way, because when you're listening to that, so many different companies. The other good question is, in the current climate, how you're finding, what is the most challenge that you're finding in your business? Again, you're getting people to share their pain points, but for that there have to be some sort of rapport. But these are the kind of questions I tend to ask. You know, tell me more about how you joined, or tell me what is the most challenging. The other one is, what do you enjoy most about what you do? What do you enjoy most about the business that you're in? So without even asking them what do you do, tell me more about what you enjoy most and what you do. As they get talking, either you'll figure out what they do, or if you're not, then you can tell them, by the way, what is it that you do? You know? But this is a great question that I find always work, irrespective.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bijay. For now, we've got a host of questions which...
From Zoom, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I've been in and out of the camera over there, I apologize.
No, but due to time constraints, we'll have to, we will try to answer as many of those questions on a one-to-one basis a little bit later on. Okay, here I'd really appreciate once again, Mr. Bijay, for taking the time off from your busy schedule and enlightening us with so many new skills that I'm sure all of us have learned. And it gives a whole different insight on an approach the next time around. we are sitting next to a person in any, it could be a formal or informal meal or a conversation or a seminar or a forum or anything, you know, the approach you take to introduce yourself to the next person near you or how you would approach somebody will be completely different, I'm sure. One more thing I'd like to Sagna ने एक हजीन वस्तु बता रही थी कि स्क्रीन पर अपने अपना दुबईनो या एक मैप बतावे छे જેમાં આપણે એકદમ ક્લિયરલી આઉટલાઈન કરેલું છે કે આપના પાસે કિतना इतना मोटा एरियाમાં આપના પાસે 1800 folk बिजनेस છે અને 5000 થી જ્યાદા મુમિન છે જે લોકો બિઝનેસ કરવા ચાહી રહ્યા છે મોહલ્લા વાઇઝ કેટેગરીઝ છે એરિયા વાઇઝ કેટેગરીઝ માં છે and over and above that we as Jatab are already running informal networking groups on WhatsApp જેમાં કે fasteners भी આવી ગયા doors and furniture fittings નું છે IT છે garments છે mobile phones છે pipe fittings electricals એમ કઈ group છે so we urge you to join those and take benefit from them પછી there are other common groups where mixed industries ના भी लोगो એક જ WhatsApp group ના ઉપર છે હજી અગર આપને કોઈ भी information જોઈતી હોય તો you can email us on tujaruae@gmail.com or on our website jattab.org. There you can directly WhatsApp chat with us and we can then guide you to the relevant group that you can be interested in. Again, this is a short insight on our potential internally, how strong we are in terms of numbers, in terms of diversity, in terms of different networking opportunities that we have. So again, keep your network diverse. You know, not necessarily कि भाई मैं हार्डवेयर में हूँ तो आप भी भाई हार्डवेयर में से तो अपने खाली एक भी जाने से इंटरेक्ट करें, पर you never know कि कोई भाई हार्डवेयर में से ने कोई गारमेंट्स में છે તો એકબીજાના કેવી રીતના કોન્ટેક્ટ્સ શેર થઈ શકે છે કોઈ ભાઈ જ્વેલરીમાં હોઈ શકે છે કોઈ ભાઈ એક સીએ હોય છે એમાં બધાના એક સ્કોપ અલગ હોય છે બધાનો એક કોન્ટેક્ટ સ્ફિયર અલગ હોય છે. With that we come to the end of this seminar. Thank you once again Mr. Bijay Shah, Joseph Waziri, thank you for your insights and to all the participants. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this.